Welcome to Fearless and Focused, the podcast where we dive into the real stories about women entrepreneurship. I'm Nicole, and I'm here with my co-host, Helia.
Hi.
And we're both entrepreneurs, and in each episode, we'll break down the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to entrepreneurship. And today is our first guest. I'm so excited. It's our first interview of our podcast series, and we're meeting with Debora Fajer-Smith, and she's going to dive into her story, her journey, and how manifestation versus hard work has played a role in her building her company. So let's dive in.
First, for start, I want to introduce ourselves. My name is Helia, and this is my co-host Nicole. We met each other at UMBC. We were both graduate students studying entrepreneurship, and yeah, that's all about us for now. And we were really excited. We were doing a little research about your background, and we were very excited that we realized you were also part of UMBC and you were an attorney.
I've worked with everything that I try to do. I try to incorporate UMBC. I try to incorporate the students. I try to give back. I love UMBC. So I believe in it. And so anytime I have an idea, I'm like, how can I bring UMBC into it? But I'll explain that later.
I love that school. Actually, somebody told me yesterday their daughter's thinking about going there. And I was just like, oh, because I wore my UMBC shirt to the gym. And I was like, oh, yes, I like this. I like that. I like this. You definitely should go there. Like, I was really advocating for it. So let's go back to where everything started. So what's the starting point for you? We could start at UMBC and or wherever you feel like is the best starting point that got you from where you knew kind of where you want to start in your career and where you ended up now.
Okay. So as we discussed, we're all from UMBC, and we are a UMBC family. So after UMBC, I went to the University of Maryland Law School, and I trained with the best for 3 years, and then I opened up my own firm in Bowie, Maryland, the law offices of Debora Fajer-Smith. After 21 successful years, I was asked to join the firm where I am now, Joseph Greenwald and Lake, and I've been there for 15 years. I'm a trial lawyer. I handle personal injury claims, workers' compensation for police, fire, teachers. And during the pandemic, we were all home a little bit, right? And I love style. I like fashion, but just like you mentioned, you hate, carrying things on trips. I also traveled, and I was looking around while I was staying home, and I had decorated my house, and I'm a CPAP user. I started having to use it a couple years ago. You get a little older, sometimes you gain weight. Although some people have the apnea right away, such as yourself, younger, it's not a problem. It's just a situation where there is extra um, uh, either tissue or a softening of the flap that lets you breathe. It's a condition, and it can affect anybody at any age. But I kept looking around the room, and I said, "Man, the room looks gorgeous, except I have this tube hanging there like I am in a hospital ward, and I only use that at night. So why do I have to look at it during the day? And also, why can't I find a cover so that it doesn't get dusty? These machines are expensive, and you've got to protect it from dander, from dust, from any aerosol cleaners in the house. Or when you go in a hotel, the grossness is thinking about the maids coming in and spraying their waxy buildup sprays all over your machine or touching it, let alone touching it. So I looked online, I looked everywhere, on the Amazon Queen. I can order anything off of Amazon, and there was nothing to be found. There was not even that, but there was no support for a CPAP user. I think it's probably in a sense because there was no awareness. People who have it are afraid of the stigma. They're uncomfortable with it. It took me a long time to get used to it, but it saves lives, and it saves years on your life. There are studies that show failure to diagnose and use the proper therapy will give you AFib, could give you mild strokes, could even kill you. And I'll tell you some famous people who have died from it. But in any event, getting back to your question, I decided, and I have to tell you, this is very special too. It's the name behind Amron. My grandfather, my dear grandfather, was an entrepreneur, and he in 1940 he built the first plastics manufacturer in São Paulo, Brazil. I unfortunately was not ever able to meet him, but he has been with me my whole life, if that makes any sense to any of you that are family and spiritual. And so during that time, I had time to think, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna take his legacy. His company was called Norma Ltd. I took Norma, I spelled Amron backwards. I spelled Norma backwards, and that brought me to Amron. That's the name. So I'm continuing his legacy. And I said, I'm going to support the CPAP user. I'm going to put together a brand that will not only bring away education and less stigma, but elevate it. For example, let me give you one small example. Gluten. A few years ago, who had ever heard of gluten? And now, why is gluten free on every single menu you have ever seen? Why? Because people brought around awareness, right? It takes time, but you can do it. And now people are very kind to gluten sensitive or celiac disease. Put it in perspective. There's, I think, an average in America from 2 to 3 million people afflicted with the actual celiac disease, which doesn't allow you to take any gluten in. Other people are just sensitive to it, but there's a certain disease that really you cannot have gluten. 2 to 3 million. Compare that with CPAP users, which is almost 30 million. And yet there are no facilities, no support organizations or products for that CPAP user, no knowledge. It becomes the stigma. No, not true. Should not be. And so many athletes have come forward explaining that they use CPAP so that other people can feel comfortable. Many public figures, I can also give you some names. But I'll give you one final example. Before the pandemic and after, when I travel, I go to a nice hotel, I check in, I say I'm a CPAP user, and do you mind providing me with some distilled water? Because we use distilled water in the tank. There's a little tank attached to the breathing machine that shoots the air in with some humidity so your mouth doesn't get really dry. And your nose. Do you know that they said, ma'am, I can direct you to the local CVS? I said, are you kidding me? You have gluten-free menus, you have all these other devices and things to help people, but you can't supply them with a little bit of distilled water. And the reason why we use distilled water, right, Nicole, is because if you don't use distilled water, the chemicals in regular water will seep into the machine, the little nooks and crannies, and destroy the machine. It's just not good. And so you'll have to replace it very soon. And you don't want to do that because they're expensive. And people get attached to and like the machine and the mask that they're using. So in launching this company, I spoke to Kevin Fulmer, who's heading the Enterprise Institute at UMBC, Entrepreneurial Institute. And I said, Kevin, let me run this idea by you. What if we launched a company and we chose and interviewed 2 UMBC students who would be interested for equity in exchange for their work? Because I cannot do this on my own, and nor am I really savvy as to social media these days, and the young folks are, you know? So we interviewed some UMBC students, and we selected them, and if I'm not corrected, I believe this is the prototype. This is the first time that the Institute did this kind of program. We set up a written document on how the company would be, who would do what, and how, once we got started, the students would also be equity owners. Okay? So that's the background.
I love it's so many things you said I want to go back to. One, I think when you talked about the stigma around the CPAP user and people who have sleep apnea, it made me think, I wonder what the correlation between how people view CPAP users, because a lot of the information that is pushed about having sleep apnea is correlation to weight. And people are not kind to people or not empathetic to people who they feel like are not in the weight that they should be in. So anything that comes as a result to that in their mind is a natural consequence. It should not be accommodated. So when you brought up the fact that athletes are coming forward, that helps change the narrative to saying that sleep apnea is not exclusive to one type of person, a prototype in your mind. It could also be somebody that's very active, somebody who you deem to be healthy by visually looking at them, and it still can affect them. So I think that helps break down that barrier so people can be more understanding, and there can be that awareness that you're saying, to where people can be accommodated in these spaces.
Mhm. I agree. I mean, I think the first actor I saw talking about it was, William Shatner, Star Trek. Um, and he went on to advertise, I think, for a machine that would clean it and everything. We have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. But with the volume of people that this disease affects,
Mhm.
there's different types of sleep apnea, by the way. I'm basically referring to the kind that will wake you up at night. There's another type that's more serious, that's brain related, that could happen during the day, things like that. I've got to learn a lot during the past year, believe me. Um, but there's no reason in my mind why we cannot provide the CPAP community with support and guidance and try to elevate it to a status that has absolutely no stigma, and that people would absolutely be absurd not to prolong their life without using a CPAP machine, make it more comfortable. Some of the blogs that I've written, explain that when I first started and being a little bit claustrophobic, I couldn't handle all this stuff on me. And so I tell people, work with your provider and find a smaller mask that really works for you. Try out a few masks because they're all different and people breathe differently. Some are breathers, some are mouth breathers, some sleep on their sides, some sleep on their back. And so there's time for you. Don't think it has to happen right away. Take your time, feel comfortable with the machine. But hopefully, when you find something that works, it's going to make your life so much better. You're going to sleep so much better. You're going to feel so much better that you'll never want to be without it. Now, is it annoying when you travel? Most definitely. So what does Amron come up with? We have developed a travel kit. Yes. If you're going on a cruise for 4 days, if you're going to Florida for 4 days, all you do is get it's actually launching next week. We have the CPAP covers already online, but we're launching the kit next week. This is very appropriate. Um, and what the kits are is it's called Breathe Away. Get it? Breathe Away. Haha. So it's a nice kit that all you have to do, it's very inexpensive. You purchase the kit. It has your 2 water bottles, 16.9 of distilled water, Amron water. And that lasts you about 4 days, 4 or 5 days. So 4 nights. For me, it does perfectly. And then we shopped around and found these wipes for Amron that are like 5 wipes in a little kit. So for those that don't know, at the end in the morning, you kind of have like a little bit of grease around the mask, and you want to keep it nice and smelling well and clean. And so in the morning, you just wipe down the little mask with these wipes, and you're all set for a few days because you'll have to wash your mask and your tubing at least. They say every day, but no one does. I don't think it's only once a week. I've been doing it once a week for years, and knock on wood, I haven't gotten any sinus infection or anything. So the wipes are important, and they're included in our kit. So you'll have this little kit with you, and you just, when you're done with the trip, you throw it away. You don't have to bring it back. And we've also attached a complimentary luggage tag to the kit. It's an Amron luggage tag. Right now, it's a promotion for our kids. The point is that CPAP has to be changed. The mentality has to change, and someone from UMBC is going to do it because me, Scotty, and Nikos are determined to do it. And we think that the next line we will put together what's called a weekender, which will have even a larger bag that will fit your kit as well as any sundry items for the weekend or whatever. So we think this is just the beginning.
So that kind of leads me into our first question, because we're talking about you and your team and how you guys view and see success and talk every day and what that looks like. Do you believe that a mindset or effort is more important when it comes to success of a business?
Good question. And I think it's a combination of both, but it definitely, you have to have the mindset first before the effort. It's a matter of priority. My heart was in bringing awareness. I believe in life that you can do good and do good. And I tell everyone in my life that I do that. I do that in the practice of law when I help people that are injured. And I believe in every aspect of my life that you can do that. So why not with UMBC students, right? And these students who graduated recently also, Nikos and Scotty, I think they have the same mindset. They're driven. And when you manifest, how did that happen that I'm walking around the room and my grandfather comes to me and says, you can manufacture these, And in my mind, believe me, I don't hear voices, but in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, Grandpa, that was easy for you. You were an engineer,
Right.
How can the lowly person like me do it? And something said, because you have to help people. There are so many millions of people that feel that they are, not represented or not seen in this country. And there's no reason for it, right? Personally, I had been diagnosed waking up. Let me step back for those that don't know. When you get diagnosed with sleep apnea, you have to just nowadays take a home test that measures how many times you're waking up per hour. In the old days, because I'm an old person, you had to go to a clinic and stay overnight. And I didn't like that at all either. Again, with claustrophobia, people watching you while you sleep, give me a break. So nowadays, they've come a long way. You can just take the kit home so you don't feel self-conscious, and you use it and you turn it in, and they'll tell you how many times your heart is stopping. You're stopping from breathing. You can't even imagine how that hurts your system, right? So I was one of the severe. I mean, I was waking up many, many times in an hour. And using the CPAP, believe it or not, by Bluetooth, your data is being transferred somehow. Again, I'm not a geek, but it's being transferred to a center that monitors your sleep. So at the end of the month, I call them, or you have a gadget you can put on your phone. But I like talking to my respiratory therapist, and I said, how did I do this month? How many times am I waking up? She goes, Debora, you're on target again. I wake up 0.5 times an hour. That's better than normal people. That's nothing.
Do you remember where you started?
Yeah, almost 100.
In a night?
Yeah.
So is that like an 8-hour span?
No, that's 1 hour. So
In 1 hour?
your heart's waking you up 50 to 100 times an hour. You're not sleeping. And now with the CPAP, I'm at 0.5. I sleep like a baby, thank God. Well, as to that, I still worry about everything else going on in life, right? But I'm just saying, health-wise, it's made $1 million difference. And I swear by it. I guess, Nicole, that's my whole purpose, is to get people to understand how such a simple thing can change your lifespan, your life, your health. And it's so very important that you start as early as possible. as soon as you're diagnosed. A wife might say, gosh, he snores. I can't even sleep in the same bed. I'm going to go sleep in the other room. I've heard these stories over and over. But most of the folks that I talk to, they are not overweight. They just have sleep apnea. And I think that it would really, really be part of my manifestation, as you want to use the word, manifestation over work effort, to bring this awareness in the US. Manifestation is the first part of it. You have to visualize it. You have to see where you want to go. You see the end, and then you get there, right? So you create end result that you want to see first, and then it follows that you get there. Now, the hard work, which is your second topic, has to be there, because without the effort, ain't nothing going to happen. And so if you're not dedicated, especially in a new venture, because you're going to hit little bumps in new ventures, you have to keep going. You hit the speed bump. Okay, let's go a different way. We started looking for these wipes, and we wanted things to be, for example, not bought in China, right? So we had to keep looking. And our covers, our CPAP covers, we also had to look while we were getting the patent. This is a very special patent for our cover, to find a very good manufacturer. And we work with a really beautiful company back in Ohio. And we started with the Maryland company, but this one in Ohio, they hand sew all of these covers. The material sourced here, and and our water comes from Georgia. It's distilled from Georgia. Some of the packaging for the kit is globally sourced, but our whole intent really is to be the brand that when you travel, you think of Amron. Don't leave home without Amron. I hope that answers your question.
It does. It definitely was a combination of mindset and effort. So like I see what you're saying, where you can't really start working on something when you don't have a vision of where you're going. And you just can't have the vision of where you're going without actually putting the hard work in it to get there. So it has to be both, and you have to know when to lean into which one in order to get to where you're trying to go.
Exactly.
And I think that the sleep quality affects every aspect of the life. It's interesting. I was recently reading an article mentioning that snoring is the third reason of divorce in US, and more than 1/3 of Americans get divorced because of the snoring.
Wow. I didn't even have that statistic in my book. That's incredible. But that goes to exactly what I've witnessed here in my neighborhood. When I had the Amron speak out about CPAP, or I wanted people to come out and talk about it so they would understand the situation. That's amazing. And it can be solved so easily. Why is it one of the sources? Because they leave the bedroom. I can't hear this anymore. He's not listening, or she even. Women get CPAP a lot too. So that's a very interesting point, and it goes right to the factor of why Amron was born. And we want the brand to educate, reach out, change lives, and it doesn't have to be difficult. It's just using the cover to make yourself feel better during the day, and taking it with you on travel, right? All I wanted, to do with Amron is be a supportive company that did not exist in the marketplace for us CPAP users. That's all. We just want to support
This is amazing. You saw the problem, you found a solution for it, and you put your hard work into that. I always talk about building a legacy, because I think that's what entrepreneurship is about, and I love that you use that word. And you're also what I can call an ethical entrepreneur. I love that. But the question I have is that you mentioned that you had a long-term career as an attorney, and then you decided to start this business. How was that change for you? Like, I want to know if you're still active in that other field, And how did your family and friends supported you starting your business?
Yes, knock on wood, I'm still very busy and active as a trial lawyer, and I love it because I help people there too. You know, that's what we do. Um, any type of injury work, um, and it's been that way for 40 years, and I care very much about my practice. So just like Scotty has a job, he's working in sports. Nikos has a job; he's in finance. We work around it together. We find a way. We also, by the way, have brought into the fold UMBC interns. And they're very much interested in being a part of a new venture, learning the process, right? How you go from A to Z. And I'm quite willing to bring in more interns because it helps us until we're ready to go and have a fulfillment process that's steady. Um, and you have to work a little harder because you work around your other career, right? Um, like I scheduled this hour just for you all, right? And I'll work an hour later tonight.
We appreciate that.
Oh, no, no, no. I appreciate you all. I'm just agreeing with you, Leah, that you do have to put in that extra work. That's part of your work component. You know that that's going to happen. You know, you have to learn from people who can give you those resources that you need. You cannot expect yourself as a new venture to know everything that you're doing. You have to rely on other people that are wise and very intelligent in their field. For example, I have contacted a social media company to help us with the social media. Although I will tell you that Nikos is very talented in producing material and boosting reels, but we also have consulted um, the Talk of Delmarva because they know how to market. You know, they know to take a product and how to take it to the market stream. I don't know that. That's just not my field. So I rely on people that I trust, okay, and building blocks. As I tell my students from UMBC all the time, not only can you do good and do good, which is what we're trying to do. We have two purposes. Of course, we want to be a big business, but we want to produce a social change, right? For people to use it. But you can also, in what you're doing, create personal relationships. And the reason why I say this to young folks is because, you know, after the pandemic and this whole new tech world where everyone texts each other and does everything without a vocal, you know, without a voice or a conversation, life is about relationships. And what I find in my advice today to anybody that's starting a new venture, unless it's something that's completely tech oriented, which has nothing to do with what I'm saying, but it does too, because it deals with who do you bank with? Who's going to help you finance? How do you find out contacts? How do you work with people? And in my experience in 40 years working, is that it's about relationships. Because if you know somebody and you trust them and you can ask them a question, right? Off the cuff, maybe something that you wouldn't ask someone else, right? The willingness to be an entrepreneur is not only manifestation in hard work, but you have to have an instilled spirit that you will take a leadership role in bringing that company forward and bringing your folks with you and fostering their success, right? It's not like I'm here and you're there. It's us. It's a team. And I love that my team is UMBC.
I have so many thoughts on what you said. First, as a founder, I definitely understand when you say it's like it's well, I always say it's like it's in me. I talk to my friends all the time and I tell them, I said, you don't think that I would just like love to just find a job that would give me fulfillment, that I don't have to worry about the accounting, anything, and just come do my job, go home and be free on the weekends. I would love to do that. But I quite literally do not have that in me. I have a drive. I have this vision. I have it in me. And if I don't go after it, I will just drive myself crazy. So I have to do it. Like, I feel like I really don't have a choice. It's just what it's in me. It's what I'm told to do. And I'm just following it. It's like, I can't really explain it. But when you said that, I definitely can relate. And then from the second part about being a founder specifically, like, me and Helly work together on our company, and it's took me a while to get to a point to trust somebody and really feel like somebody is my equal. Not that I am above anybody, but it's just I have such a passion for what I'm doing, and to find other people who wants to invest as much in that passion and work is hard. And UMBC brought us together in that way that was very unexpected. I kind of going back to manifestation. I kind of set that goal as that year. So I want to find somebody to help build a team. I need to build a team. I have been doing this for so long by myself that I just spoke it, and she just like popped into my life, and we just been together ever since. It was
I
like
love it.
I definitely can relate to the manifestation part where it's just something you feel in your spirit and your soul that you just can't explain. It's just there. And
Entrepreneurs are different. Yeah.
absolutely. And it can be lonely. Like, we talk about it all the time. And that's what was like very important for us. And specifically to start this type of podcast, to start Feelings and Focus, because entrepreneurship is lonely. And entrepreneurship, I feel like, is even more lonely when you're a woman, because you're already a minority in a big group of people. So I feel like it can further isolate you because our issues can be a little bit different. And sometimes how we approach business can be a little bit different too. So it was important for us to create a platform and a space to where we could gather and talk about our stories, our experiences, and help each other and share those resources with other people wanting entrepreneurship.
Well, let me take you back 1 second and talking about, feeling the spirit. Out of law school, I went to UMBC, I went to law school and directly went into a very good law firm in Prince George's County, Maryland. After 3 years, I knew I was going to have my own law firm. I was out of there. No matter how much I loved the people I was working with, and they were great mentors. Now, in 1985, there weren't too many women lawyers, let alone women with their own firms, trust me, let alone litigators. There were a lot of other, women were put in doing wills or divorces or, but litigators, there were probably 2 or 3 that were close friends of mine. Women were starting to be put on the bench. But my 2 mentors were men, actually. They were very family-oriented men, very, very family-oriented, and I was treated like a daughter, And so I was very, very fortunate to have that experience, and they were very good lawyers. But after 3 years, I'm like, I need to do my own. Just like you were saying, I'm not gonna stick around. And I built my firm up, not burning any bridges. Remember, relationships. With those, with the support of those guys, and very successful for 21 years with associates in various offices, branching from Bowie to Southern Maryland to Brooklyn Park. And I loved it, but I did the 6.5 days a week for a long time. You had to, because until you grow enough to a point where you can delegate to an accountant, to do your books, to the computer person to do your computer system, until you can get to that point, it's all on you. And you want to build your platform on a very steady basis before you continue to grow, because if you don't, you're just going to slide. This has nothing to do with Amron, but everything to do with career. The American Bar Association did a interesting book called The Road to Independence, where they asked women lawyers from the 1970s until whenever they finished the book. And I am one of those that are featured in the book. And they ask the same questions that you're asking, which is so important what you're doing. Both of you know it, because they ask us to write a letter to a woman who wants to start her own law firm. What was your past? How did you get there? And what do you recommend to people? Very interesting book. It's still in print. But it's the same concept. It's the same concept. You have to build on very strong pillars, right? And you want to do it ethically. You want to do it financially sound. Um, and when you know that you have something to share, like you said, you don't know how you're feeling it, but you're following the dot.
Mm-hmm.
Keep following the dot.
Really appreciate it. I think I've learned a lot. Um, it was invaluable lessons that you teach us today. I just love to have this conversation. Maybe one more time in the future. I'm sure that me and Nicole would learn a lot from your experiences.
Well, I wish the both of you all the success in the world. I think you're onto something really great. And I know for a fact you're going to be successful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking your time out, and thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for doing something that helps the community that I'm personally affected by, because I don't even think about traveling with my CPAP, and you definitely made me consider, because I'm already traveling with enough, and if I had to bring one more bag, the CPAP is not funny. So I appreciate what you do, and again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So yeah, I was surprised that she still is actually practicing law, because she had done it for so long, like going from law school to working at a law firm, having her own law firm, multiple locations, and then going and joining another law firm and been there for 15 years. And then on top of that, took on a challenge to start a business. So I was shocked that she even still had and still practicing litigating too. Please.
That's a lot.
Right.
That's a lot. And as I mentioned earlier, like I just love that she's so ethically conscious, and I think that's what is the most important thing right now. Entrepreneurship is about building something long lasting, building something sustainable. I always like keep talking about this, and I think what she's doing comes from a real problem that she felt it, and she tried to find a solution for it. And what's amazing is that she really cares about the details. She cares about hiring new students. She cares about sharing the equity with those people who are dedicating their time and effort into the business. She cares about making an impact in people's life and actually make people's life better. That's what make a business successful, in my opinion. She mentioned that her business is sourced locally, and that's something amazing in my opinion. Uh, and the lessons that she gave us is invaluable. I can say that I've been into entrepreneurship for the past 6-7 years, and I already feel like how important what she said is. And I think it comes from a person with over 40 years of experience
Right.
as
Exactly.
an entrepreneur.
She just like when she talked about when she went to Kevin and proposed her idea of bringing students on and giving them equity, and they went through the whole thing, that just made me think like she's thinking outside of the box. She's figuring out like what resources do she have and how is she going to use those resources to get to her end goal. And that's something I recently learned, that you gotta, and connected with relationships, like that has always been my two Achilles heels, like asking for help and fostering those relationships. So I'd rather just do the work. But I had to unpack that and I had to unlearn that. And that was just another confirmation for me to say that I know I'm going on the right track with that. Like I'm realizing that relationships are important and it's okay to have business focused relationships. I think that sometimes people may think that having business specific relationships just makes it like transactional. And I think that we put a negative indication of that. It is transactional, but it's reciprocal. What makes it not okay is when the transaction only is in benefit of one person, but it's supposed to be reciprocal. We're business associates, we are business acquaintances. So when you call me, I have a resource I share with you. When you and vice versa, and we're always helping each other, even when each other aren't around. And that's what's really building a relationship, and that's where it's going to benefit you in the long run over anything else. And I've seen that happen since literally the day we started in UMBC. until now. And that's been like the biggest takeaway. So for her to bring that up, I was just like, yes, Nicole, you're going in the right direction. This lady has been doing has had a professional career for over 40 years, and she's even seeing it. So it's like, yeah, um, I'm on the right path. That made me feel good.
And some pattern that I've noticed in women entrepreneurs in general is that when they start talking about their business, they talk about more about the impact they're making, the problem they try to solve, and the legacy they're trying to build here. But I don't know, but usually when you start talking to male entrepreneurs, they jump into the numbers and stats, which is also very important.
Right.
But as I say all the time, entrepreneurship is about building something sustainable. That's what's mattered. Like we can look at the very successful brands like Apple, and we can see that Steve Jobs didn't talk about numbers and the quarterly goals that they made, but he came on stage and talked about what problems he wants to solve, how he's going to solve a problem in your life. And I think that's what important, and I enjoy talking to women entrepreneurs about it. And I think like you and I started this podcast because we wanted to let people, especially women entrepreneurs, know that there are like other people in the world doing the same thing that they're doing, don't necessarily have the stage to talk about it. And the other thing that you also mentioned is that we wanted to share our resources.
Exactly. Which made me think that when she said she was hiring interns, I also want to just put this out there for anybody that's listening, that if you are a business in the state of Maryland, which where we're all based out of, and you have a company and you want to use interns that are also based in Maryland, there is a intern program called the MTIP program where they will reimburse you a portion of the cost that it takes to bring on that intern for payroll. So if you are a Maryland-based business and you're looking for some resources to help bring interns and students within Maryland into your company, look that up. It's called MTIP, M-T-I-P, and it's ran out of the office in UMBC, but it's available to all Maryland businesses. So I've used it. That is how I was able to start building a team, and it's a great program. So definitely take advantage.
We started Fearless and Focused because entrepreneurship is lonely, overwhelming, and unpredictable, but it doesn't have to be. We want to have real, honest conversations, not just about what works, but also about what doesn't work. Each episode will focus on a key concept from teamwork, manifestation, hard work, funding, branding, and we break it down in a way that's actually relatable and useful. Thanks for listening to us, and see you next time at Fearless and Focused.
Bye.